We have, hey everyone, and welcome back to the Digital Nomad World Weekly Lecture. I am Becky and I'm back as your host. And today I'm going to be talking with Laura DeVoe about tips on becoming a social media manager. Welcome to Digital Nomad World, Laura.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. Yeah, hopefully I can
I'm
help you.
so excited to hear from you because I've thought
Oh,
about being a social media manager before as well. So I hope that you can shed light on what it really means to be just in this kind of
the
role.
good and the bad, or yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so everybody who's joining us, if you can think about questions you have, please let us know and I'm going to make sure to ask them. So first of all, Laura, can you tell us about your background and how you got into the world of social media?
Yeah, of course. So I feel like my story kind of proves that anyone can do this if they want to. Because I used to be a physiotherapist or a physical therapist in different countries. Um, and so it was very, very kind of clinical. I had to be at the hospital every day. And I was just fed up of it. I was so fed up of having to go to the same place every day, wear my uniform. And I just thought, there must be another way. And then I was really lucky and I came across somebody whilst I think it was at a climbing gym one day. Um, and she seemed too happy. When you're like, what do you do? And she was way too happy. And we ended up talking for ages. And it turns out that she was a social media manager. And that she worked remotely, and this is before COVID, so it was, it wasn't trendy, it wasn't cool. This is, probably like 5 or 6 years ago. And so I just decided to kind of ask her then and there, how do you do what you do? It kind of became a bit of a mission. And so I gave myself about 6 months, I think, and I decided just to learn everything I could possibly learn about social media, what to do, how to do it. And then I ended up actually getting a job at her company. She wasn't in charge, she was just another employee. There were loads of them, so it wasn't rigged. And I ended up getting the job and then started working for this massive agency where it was kind of baptism by fire. I learned so much so quickly. And then from there, I probably worked there for about a year. And then it was a lot. I think I was juggling about 15 or 16 clients just on my own. So I learned a lot, but it wasn't sustainable. And so I then decided to go freelance and do what I was doing, but just for kind of fewer clients, and give them way more of my time, which is what I'm doing now. Is that that's kind of a
Wow.
long story, but yeah.
Yeah, what a journey. No, there's so much to unpack there. First of all, I'm curious how you taught yourself for those first 6 months.
Yeah. So I bought a course. I think it was, I don't know if his name is like Dara something, but it was on Udemy. And it was just kind of the ultimate digital marketing kind of general course. Because I decided that I needed to learn about, digital marketing as a whole before I specialized in anything. And at the time, I didn't really know if I wanted to do social media or kind of copywriting or, what section of it. So I did that for about a month, and that was just hardcore, every day learning. I was still doing a little bit of work, so it kind of was maybe a couple of hours before work, be a physiotherapist, and then come back and do another couple of hours learning. And then just a lot of YouTube. So, there's so much free information out there that you do have to kind of sift because it's not all correct. But once you've done enough hours of watching kind of the screen, you can kind of see what are the common lessons that you're learning, and they must be true. And then the biggest thing was just getting that experience in the agency, because I learned so much by actually doing the job, which was great.
Was that agency the same agency that your friend was working for that you had spoken
Yeah,
to?
it was. Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't, am I able to say or not? I don't, I'm happy to kind of not disclose names.
Oh yeah, you don't need to disclose, but I do think it's amazing that this person you had met is the person you went back to and you were able to get a job. I think so important when we're looking for those jobs and networking, right?
100%, and exactly that. And I think I didn't get, I really do want to kind of hasten. I didn't get the job because she worked there, and it was kind of a totally different. It's such a big company that she didn't have a say.
Okay.
But what she was able to do was just give me tips and, give me tips for the interview, or like, what questions might be asked. But you're so right, it's all about just, meet a couple of people who are doing what you want to do and learn from them, because then you're not blind. You've got somebody who can actually show you the path because they're a couple of steps ahead of you. And yeah, that's been an absolute game changer for me.
Awesome. So I know you taught yourself, you're very self-directed there, and then you got this job at the agency. Do you recommend taking a similar path for someone wanting to get into this? Do you think they should work for a big agency first, or some kind of job where they're an employee and then go into it on their own?
That's a really good question, actually. I think nowadays, because there are so many remote jobs, that you can get, because before, when I did it, it was really difficult to do that because remote working wasn't really a thing. Now that you've got the option of that, I would actually recommend it, because it means that you get to learn, and it sounds awful, but you get to learn and make mistakes. And because you're not a freelancer, it's not all on you. Whereas if you go out alone completely and you don't know what you're doing and you've never had a client before, then you've got to be prepared that the mistakes you make are all on your shoulders. And secondly, you might not have a team around you to guide you. For example, in the company I was with, and it was a fantastic company, and we had built-in training time. So, I was also getting paid an hour a week to learn more, whereas that time when you're a freelancer is, completely on your own as well. So yeah, I would recommend it, but it's not absolutely, it's not a necessity at all.
Yeah, don't let it stop you if it does feel like that is the stumbling block.
Exactly. And actually, yeah, if you're finding it too difficult to get that first job or that first interview, start with local, just approach local shops or people that you do know, use your network, and offer your services there, and then you'll learn on the job as well. Learning on the job's the best way. So either way, it works.
All right, thank you for sharing that. Now, as a social media manager, what are you responsible for exactly?
What do I actually do?
What do you do? Is it hashtag?
Yeah.
Keyword? This is my impression of it. It's what I was thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. So honestly, it is completely different for every different person I work with. And the whole point is that my job is to earn my clients the most money they can and connect with their audience via social media. It's kind of the blanket term. And it's different for each platform as well. So, the strategy for TikTok and what I do for that is so different to Facebook, it's so different to LinkedIn, because it's very different customers. So my day-to-day is probably, we can split it into three, if that's all right.
Sure.
A bit of kind of maybe pre-production or, strategy. And yeah, that includes talking with the person that I'm working with, really understanding them and building a rapport with them, getting a strategy together, because you can't just post anything, it's got to have a purpose. So there's got to be a lot of research that goes into that phase as well. And then you've got kind of the middle phase, which is the content creation. So whether that's creating videos, I actually shoot and do photography myself as well, so I can offer that as an additional kind of content creation package with what I do. And then the scheduling as well. So you've done the content. It's a bit like a kind of factory process. You schedule it all. Not everybody schedules, but I really like to do that because then it takes the weight off of my shoulders. I just know that the month is scheduled, and then I can focus on the other little bits. And then the last bit is like the post-production, and that includes the engagement, and actually following up with what you've posted. A lot of social media people post and forget about it, and it's like, it's posted, it's done. And actually there's so much value in that final part where you get to engage with your audience and build that kind of connection with your actual customers themselves, which are going to turn them into leads, which are going to turn into sales, which means your clients are going to love you. So, yeah, it's a whole process from start to finish. I can go into more detail if you want, but I don't want to waffle on with the boring bits.
Oh, well, I am like speaking of like hashtags, which I had mentioned before, and the scheduling of
Yeah.
posts, which you mentioned. Do you
Yeah.
have any tips regarding the platforms? Like what do you use when you do that kind of research or scheduling?
Yeah, of course. So again, it does vary with who you're working with, because some clients might say, I've been using, say, I don't know, Hootsuite for years. I only want to use Hootsuite for scheduling. I personally have used quite a few different ones. One of my favorites for Instagram is a program called Later, and it's just because it's so simple, and it means that my clients can go in and have a look themselves at kind of what's been scheduled, and it's a bit like a drag and drop kind of situation where you can kind of schedule it, you've got your captions, and you can drag and drop it into a really nice to see calendar. So I quite enjoy that. But to be honest, I think the best are actually the in kind of house, um, for example, Instagram's own, analytic tools and things like that, I think actually work a little bit better sometimes, than getting these third party pieces of software, because I don't, often the numbers are slightly different. So if you're looking at analytics specifically and you're going into Instagram, and then, even if they go into Later, which is what I've just mentioned, I quite enjoy using, the numbers vary ever so slightly. So for me personally, Later for scheduling, but then any sort of analytics, Facebook have got their own business suite, Instagram and TikTok as well, or they all do their own analytics. So I actually take the data and the stats directly from the platform itself. Yeah, I think those are kind of the main ones. I like to keep it simple and just not too complicated. You don't need too many bells and whistles, not if you've got a good strategy. So yeah, keeping it
Well, I
simple.
love that. Keep it simple and you'll be able to
Yeah.
get that many more clients if it's all streamlined.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as well, if you stick to the kind of the native platforms themselves, if you bring on new clients, you're not then kind of having to manage so many different pieces of software. You can just say, I actually generally use the native software, and that tends to work perfectly. So yeah.
Okay, great. For the hashtag research, do you do research along those lines for Instagram? I don't know if that's also needed for Facebook or some social media I'm really not aware of. I'm
Yeah.
familiar with so much like TikTok, which we can talk about, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So hashtags, and any sort of caption writing, um, it's all so important. And I'm also always a bit skeptical of the program. So for example, I believe that Instagram, we know that hashtag works, but we also know that there's keywords within captions that work, even though Instagram hasn't come out specifically and said, these keywords or the words that you say in a video, no, we're not recording them, but they might be, and if they are, it's definitely worth having that research there. So there's lots of different strategies you can do in terms of excuse me, hashtags and keywords, and it's really important that you have a strategy behind what you're posting and why. For example, if you are doing a campaign that is to launch a new product, you want to make sure that the hashtags you're using are hashtags with intent, which means that the people searching them are more likely, going to buy. So it might be, don't use this one, but just a really easy example is, say you're selling chocolate. You could have, hashtag buy chocolate, or the word buy chocolate means that somebody is looking to buy chocolate, so they're further down the sales line. So if your strategy, and that's a terrible example, no one ever actually uses hashtag buy chocolate, but it's just to help you understand.
I like the chocolate part.
I mean, chocolate's great. It's really important that the hashtags and the captions you're using are using the words with intent, and that's kind of a marketing term, which just means it's not just a random word that's trending. I think often in social media we can get caught up with what's trending, and that does have a purpose and that is important to use. But if you just jump on any trend just to kind of get the following without actually thinking what that follower is thinking when they're consuming your content, stay with me, then it's almost a wasted post. You might get loads of views and that's fantastic, but it's not great if those views don't lead to a sale or to actually, you using that product or that service that your client is paying you to get customers for.
I'm sure that's why. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I actually had never thought about using intent words in my keywords. So that's really helpful. Yeah. And I'm sure for thinking of it as a business and managing other clients becomes very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's loads of different, so, there's keywords with intent, but there are also trending hashtags that you need to be aware of. One of the, a really great way to do it as well is look at a competitor, what are they doing? What's working for them? And trial and error as well. So, you may have done all the best research and you've got, right, this is my perfect, number of hashtags, and actually, some of them don't work and you need to have to, let go and refresh them. So it's a bit of a trial and error. Not over hashtagging again, even a year ago it was a case of use your 30 hashtags, maximum 30, and now we're finding that actually people who posts that are using that from trial and error that I've been doing are not getting the visibility than 5 that are a little bit more intentional. All of these you need to be aware of, and it's constantly changing. So you always have to be aware that, as I said, before it was 30 hashtags, now it's 5 hashtags. Next week it might be something different. So yeah, just trying to really stay on the ball. And that's why this first kind of pre-production bit, this research phase of any of your strategy is so important.
How do you keep up with all the ways that these algorithms change?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's a case of, it's multifaceted. There's so many different ways. Honestly, kind of just podcasts and YouTube on digital marketing, blogs, I read a lot of, and it's really helpful to try and stay ahead of the trend. But it's with a caveat that, unless Instagram or Facebook or TikTok have posted something specifically saying we've updated this, then there's a lot that you're not going to know unless you are kind of looking at these blogs and reading and trying to consume content yourself around the developing kind of strategies that you need to have. It's a lot to keep updated with. You won't stay on top of everything, but as long as you're trying to make yourself aware of any kind of big changes that have happened, then you should be okay. Just trial and error yourself. Just constantly monitor what's happening with your own content and with your competitors as well. And if there's a really good competitor that's really big and they've got a much bigger budget than you, copy them. Whatever they're doing, it's working. Do it as well. And if they suddenly do a U-turn and do something different, then be aware of it. Maybe don't make that change immediately, but definitely have an awareness of it and figure out maybe they know something we don't.
So yeah, it's definitely being in the space, like you said, and being around the content and the people creating it, because I heard that recently Instagram is focusing more on reels as opposed to posts. I just heard that from someone, but I don't know where they heard it, but then you should focus on that. And it's keeping up with this news that you're getting from that social media world.
Definitely. And as well, it's just having an understanding of the marketing of the social media platforms themselves. So this is where it gets a bit Inception of, marketing of the marketing of the marketing. But, we know that Instagram and Facebook and TikTok are huge rivals. So if we can see that TikTok has suddenly exploded with videos, you sure know that Instagram and Facebook are now going to be pushing videos because they can't get left behind, and they are the two giants in the social media space. So any sort of video content now is, it really is top tier. So if you're not doing video content, you should be. It's only going to get bigger. And we can see that from the insane growth of TikTok. So any sort, this kind of short form video content is where you are going to get some really big growth, but do it with intention. Don't just do it, with nothing at all. So always those two things. It's like a little bit of trend and definite intention.
And ever changing. That will never change.
And that, I don't think that will ever change in terms of video. I don't know where it's going to go, but video just it's been the most popular and is continuing to be the most popular. So I can't see that changing for a while. We might consume it slightly differently. It got shorter and shorter and shorter, and now reels are back to 90 seconds. It's getting longer and longer and longer again. So that might change, but in terms of it being a photo versus video, yeah, definitely more important. So reels on Instagram, TikTok videos, Facebook videos, yeah, that's where you should be.
Is there a best social media platform of these three that you keep mentioning, or in general, would you say there's one that you really need to be putting a lot of energy into?
Honestly, and that's probably my most asked question. And I will always come back and say there is no superior one whatsoever. It is entirely where your customers are. So, I've had clients come to me and they say, right, we're doing TikTok. And I say, right, none of your clients are on TikTok. Why are you doing TikTok? And it's because people often get kind of FOMO. They feel they're missing out. They need to be jumping on this potential. But the reality is that if your demographic of customers are slightly older, maybe 50s or 60s, they're going to be on Facebook far more than they're going to be on TikTok. So you really need to focus there. Is it more business B2B? Then in which case you need to be on LinkedIn. And there are cases where it does cross, but in terms of my favorite and what I think is bigger is what's going to work for your kind of company. The top three are Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at the moment, and I personally prefer Instagram and TikTok, but that's probably because that's my demographic. So yeah,
that's why we need a social media manager to manage things, because maybe as like an older client, for example, I would know that I shouldn't be on TikTok with my customers.
Yeah, so, and I mean,
take a step back.
Yeah, definitely. If there's budget, go for it. But I just see too many people spreading themselves far too thin, and they're on everything. And yet the reality is, they need to just niche it down. We all, most of us know now that to be successful, you need to find your niche, and that's the same with social media. You can't just spread yourself too thin across everything. You need to have a really good strategy and be growing in one place before you then expand out.
Okay. Also, like, I've always had this impression that a lot of people pay for their followers or likes. Should companies or clients do that if they have the money? Is this something that is common for companies to do?
Yeah. No, no, never, ever, ever, please, never, ever pay for your following, because technology is far too smart. It's much smarter than we'll ever be soon. And even if it's something that, worked, last year, next week, they're probably going to bring in something which means it'll be a new piece of software that can identify who's paid for followers, and you will get shut down immediately. And that's what's happening. And that's what's happened with so many of my clients, is they've come to me and they said, I had this massive following, I don't know what happened, and then they've shut down, it's suddenly shut down. Can you recover it? And I dig deep and find out, right, they actually bought 20,000 followers, and that goes against the policy. Never break the policy, because you won't win. You can't win. Just follow the rules and grow organically, and that is where you will build a brand that is long term. It's kind of like short-term gains are never worth it, ever. Please don't do it. I couldn't say that more strongly.
Thank you for demystifying that for me, because I, in my head, had been like, how does this person have so many followers as an individual? But yeah, what are some things that generally are good practices when you are posting content to help your social media grow?
That's a great question. And yeah, with regards, sorry, just very quickly jumping back to when you said, how do people have it? Not every account will get shut down that buys followers, and that's where it tricks you, because you think, oh, well, they got away with it. But the reality is that they can shut you down at any point. So you're never safe, don't do it. So what you should do is regular, consistent posting. And that is what is absolutely going to grow long term. It's how you build a following, because people like consistency. So if you post and not over posting as well. So again, there's a bit of a fine line. If you're posting every day, you're going to exhaust your followers and they're going to lose interest. So let's take Instagram, for example, or Facebook. The good thing is that you can schedule across both. It's probably kind of 2 to 3 times a week. Again, it varies on business, but as a blanket, kind of 2 to 3 times a week, a variety of content. So as I said, you want video in there. You can have a post in there as well, but also utilize the stories and this even kind of shorter form content that most platforms have as well, because that means that you're constantly in the foreground. We know that if you go on Instagram, the stories are right at the top. So if you're doing a story every day, then you're going to constantly be at the top, whether that's your brand or whether your client's brand. And so having that kind of always present is going to be really, really helpful. And then back it up with 2 or 3 posts a week. In terms of caption writing as well, there's a really good opportunity with your copywriting to connect with your audience, ask questions, do engaging captions. Don't just if you just do sales copy, you're going to lose people. So add value, whether it's a how-to or an explanation, or something, connect on a human level. I've got a couple of clients of mine who are just one-man band, accountants and things like that. And sometimes we do copy that's just, I don't know, really human, had a really rough time, of this, found it really hard. It's the end of the week, very stressful. And actually that gets loads of engagement because people are like, oh, me too. And then you add that human element for your clients. So does that answer it? I feel like I've
Yeah.
said
That answers it.
yeah.
There's so much to keep in mind with all of this. And you were answering a question I had as well of like, as a social media manager, when you get these clients at the beginning, I imagine you make an agreement with them, okay, I'm going to post 3 times a week. And I guess that's how you just in the contract with each other, you need to specify what you're responsible for. I'm sure it's different for every client. So
yeah, definitely. It's really helpful discussing your deliverables. So what I normally do is if ever I'm starting work with somebody, kind of the first few weeks of my work is actually building that strategy. So as I said, research is so important. And it might be that actually within the space, if we're working with a younger company where your audience are younger people who are on TikTok, for example, you're going to want to post more than on Facebook if it's, B2B or even on LinkedIn, something like that. So I spend a bit of time doing this strategy, and then I kind of discover what the deliverables are. So I won't necessarily start my work and say, right, I'm going to, generically post twice a week for you, because unless I've got that backed up with research, then I don't really think I'm doing my job very well. So I usually start for the first few weeks, do my research, and then discuss exactly what it's going to look like over the next coming months or years, hopefully. You want to keep your clients for as long as you can. So, yeah.
all right. Yeah. Yes, that was really helpful. We haven't received any questions from the audience.
Okay.
But I had one more question for you. So when you, I know that you had spoken to a friend and you started working for the same large agency. When you got that job with the agency, what did you show to them? If someone here is thinking, okay, the next step for me is I want to apply to be a social media manager, what did you have to show them? Because I know your background was really different from that job.
Well, what I did is I just decided to market myself. And that meant that even though my job as a physiotherapist was very different, there were so many skills, and this goes to anybody, is that you will already have skills that you didn't realize are really important, whether that's in communication. For me, the main one was communication, because having to communicate with my patients in really complex situations was such a transferable skill, because I need to communicate through social media to, lots of different clients. So it was just wording my CV, I guess, in a way that could prove that I could do the job. Even though I didn't have the exact experience, I still had those skills. I think, I don't know if that helps. I hope it does.
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely helpful. Did you show them your own social media accounts then?
Yeah, so that's true actually, and actually that's something I hadn't mentioned is I had a while ago, kind of my personal accounts, I decided to start posting a little bit more and managed to build up a little bit of a following. So I kind of had a little bit of proof that I could do it for, you know, my own personal following. So yeah, even if you don't have experience or, you know, you really can't think of anything, build up your own socials so that when somebody comes and you know, has a look, they can see, okay, you know, you can do it, even if you haven't been paid to do it for somebody else just yet. And if not, just offer to do, you know, I don't advocate this often, but if you really are in a pinch, offer to do it for a friend or, you know, someone for free, just so you've got that little bit of experience to say, I have been doing it. And all you need is that one in, and then, you know, you're fine. But again, I do not often advocate doing work for free. So that's only if you really don't have anywhere else to go.
Right. Well, thank you. I can really think we've made a clear picture today of how you can get that job and build your own following, and then what you're going to do once you have that job. So
Yeah.
thank you very much, Laura.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Last question. If people want to follow you or check out your work, where can they go?
Yeah, of course. So I am mainly on Instagram. I haven't posted in a while, ironically. I've been too busy working. And it's Laura Devoe. So my name's Laura, but just Laura, like Lau, the first bit. And my surname's Devoe. So all one, Laura Devoe.
Laura Devoe. Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to have your name when we post this to the channel and to the website. So yes, thank you, Laura. It was so good speaking with you. And for all the listeners, join us again next Monday at 3 p.m. UK time for our next conversation.
Perfect. Bye.